Hi guys, for number 2, we're asked to create a segmented bar chart, which is very similar to a regular bar chart, but for a segmented bar chart, we stack our bars. So let's go ahead and dive right in. So it says in 2009, regular season, basketball player Candace Parker of the LA Sparks, she made 131 out of 270 shots. So I'm just going to do regular season, 131 out of 270, and I'm going to go ahead and just calculate that percentage. 131 divided by 170, that gives me 0.77058. And I'm going to round that to be 77.1%. Okay. In 2009 playoffs, she made 38 out of her 71 shots. So that was the playoff games. She made 38 out of 71. And 38 divided by 71 is 53.5, so 0.535. Moving the decimal over twice would give us 53.5%. So automatically looking at this, you can see she did worse in the playoffs. So that's kind of interesting. But I'm going to show you the segmented bar chart, which means I need a key that's going to denote the made shots. And I'm going to do the missed shots. Okay, so I've got to do both percentages. So let's go ahead and let's calculate the missed shots. So the mades for both of these was 77.1, 53.5. To find the missed, you take 100% and you subtract. So missed is 100% minus the percentage, 77.1. 100 minus 77.1 is 22.9. And I don't think for a segmented bar graph, you really wouldn't have to do that because you're going just up to 100 on your bar graph. But just for us to know what those values are, is we are going to go ahead and calculate it so we have a better understanding. And you can describe your graphs a little bit better by doing this as well. So 100 minus 53.5, that's going to give me 46.5. Okay, now I'm ready to make my graph. On the left-hand side of your graph is always percentages. And I've got to go all the way up to 100% for this one. And I always seem to not be able to make a big enough graph. I always seem to have a challenge with that. So let's make this 70. This is 80, 90, 100. Okay. And then I also need to make sure that I label. That is super important to always label. Okay, and this is about shots attempted. On the bottom, I have my two categories, which is the regular season and the playoffs. Okay, so for a segmented bar graph, what you're going to do is we have our made shots, which is going to go up for the regular season to 77, so almost to 80, and then for the playoffs is 53.5. Okay, for a segmented, you stack your bars, so the remaining 23 or 22.9% is just going to go all the way up to 100, which is why I like to calculate the percentages already. So this guy is going to go all the way up to 100. So it's very similar to a bar graph. A regular bar graph that's not segmented would just be bars that were right next to each other. But for the segmented, you stack it. And then if we want to compare this briefly, we would say that Candace Parker performed worse or had a worse performance in the playoffs. And the big thing is I want to make sure that I'm using that vocabulary of performance or performed in my description so that I'm using the key statistical vocab that you want for when you're analyzing graphs.